Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 108 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight, as always, is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Kyle, kick fucking ass, I got a MasterCard, fine.
Ah, shit. Goddamn shit. Ah, god damn it. Been drinking all these beers, can't finish. Shit. Ah, god damn it. Shit.
You forgot man.
Man.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, Donkey Kong Kill Screen Haggis.
You guys are making a mockery of my words, man. Like the whole thing is turning out to be a theatrical mockery. You understand that, don't you, Mike?
I do.
Good. You will.
No. Third, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel. It's all right. Something to live for. Jesus told me so. Rowald.
It's all right. It's okay.
I just love it. He's like, I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Yeah.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew. I gotta try losing sometime. Zumwalt.
So when you're in the grave and you're just laying there in the casket, this is your last hurrah. It's the final goodbye. What are you gonna think about? Huh? Do you think they smoke and have cigarettes up in heaven? I don't think so. I just don't think so.
I love how all of you have quoted just one of the movies.
Because it's
Yeah.
the most
Very well
quotable.
It is.
It's infinitely quotable, though.
It is. It's great.
Amazing.
Oh my
But
God.
before we talk about it, let me post the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, gamers and filmmakers, welcome to the docu-main event. Tonight, two average Joes will rise to the occasion to take on their nemeses. One is attempting to dethrone a king along with a gorilla. The other is attempting to finish what he started while facing financial ruin. Who will reach the kill screen and who will be left on the cutting room floor? In the first corner, from 2007, written and directed by Seth Gordon. Starring Steve Wybe, Mark Alpinger, Adam Wood, Walter Day, and Steve Sanders. The King of Kong! In the second corner, from 1999, directed by Chris Smith. Starring Mark Borchardt, Mike Shank, Monica Borchardt, Bill Borchardt, Cliff Borchardt, and Joan Petrie. American Movie!
So, American Movie. I just want to get this out of my system. Mike is my spirit animal. Let's go ahead and start it off with writing.
When we do documentaries, one of the things, just for people who haven't seen a documentary episode, we usually use like editing as the writing, because that's kind of where these stories are crafted and built together, and they take the job of the writer and kind of create the ebbs and flows of the story, and that's kind of usually done in the editing room with the footage that they have. Both of these movies kind of beg the question. We talked about this a little before we recorded, but like, how do these stories even come about? Where do they come from? Who finds these stories and decides that there's something there worth filming? Because if you've ever shot anything remotely resembling a documentary, they're very time intensive. And how do you know when to be on the scene and when to get those shots? Because it seems like this was shot very comprehensively. And it's done really, really well. As far as the writing goes, I think King of Kong, I think does a better job kind of telling a story and presenting us with obstacles, and keeping a very traditional story format. Whereas American Movie almost kind of has a Harold and Kumar feel to it, where it's just like, I want to make a movie, I'm going to make a movie. And then the problems kind of pop up as we go through it. And some of them aren't even obstacles. Some of them are just the setups for, the difficulties that he has in making the film, but not so much they get in his way. It's just his station in life. It is itself the obstacle for getting his movie made. Whereas, Steve, they do a pretty good job in King of Kong, and I was watching it, and I knew, and I'm sure Mike has trivia on it after the fact, but the whole time I was watching King of Kong, I watched it first time probably about 12 years ago, but I watched it and this time, and I could not remember what came of this. Like, I thought for a little bit that Billy was unfairly cast as the villain in this, and he wasn't shown in a very good light. But as I'm sure Mike will tell you here in a little bit, that's pretty spot on. Yeah, he got what he deserved.
Oh boy, yeah.
And Steve is the the everyman and the dad, and just the guy playing Donkey Kong in his garage and the hero of the movie. And so by that nature, I thought King of Kong did a better job with the writing and creating the hero, the protagonist and antagonist, and setting it all up. American Movie is brilliantly edited. It's fantastic. Like you said, it's the most quotable of the two. But as far as like giving us a story with a beginning, middle, and end, I think King of Kong does a better job.
Those are good points. I agree with you about King of Kong for sure, because when you talk about how they're setting us up to interact with these characters and what we think about them, it's hard for me to draw a bigger contrast between Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell. Like a good family guy, stays at home, really smart, way too nice, gets rolled over, kicked around by life. And a guy who professionally wears a mullet basically and sells hot sauce and owns 1 million American Eagle ties. So like, to me, that's like white hat, black hat. I'm like, okay, I got who I like and I got who I don't like. In my opinion, King of Kong does an excellent job in presenting the overall narrative arc, especially because of the little twists and turns it sneaks in, where you're not quite expecting, like, there's going to be this videotape. And I love that they had kind of secret conversations recorded with that one guy, I can't remember his name, something Q, Billy Mitchell's lackey, where he's always off in the distance making calls on a payphone or something like that to tell Billy. It's so despicable. It's just deplorable.
How did they get those?
He probably had a mic on, completely forgot he was being recorded, and just walked away and called him. I mean, I'm sure but it's really good at creating those lines and telling you who to root for.
Brian Q.
There you go. American Movie is a lot looser, but I love the characters and the way everything is presented to you, and the overall layout of it is perfect for the story it's trying to tell. So I think they're both expertly put together documentaries, probably with very different budgets and outcomes in mind. But I couldn't really find a fault with the way they were presented documentary style. Of course, the newer you get and you're going to have more flashy tools and things like that. But I thought they both did a great job presenting their stories and keeping them in a good order and good pacing and everything like that.
Yeah, writing is definitely a little bit challenging when it comes to documentaries. But man, I wish I could write characters like this. I wish, you can't write these characters for either of these movies, but especially for American movie. It's like there were times, and I have a feeling we're gonna hear some trivia and some stories that counter this thought. But there were times when I thought, is this really a documentary? Are these people acting? They seem like actors. Like, are there really people who would do and say these things? Because it seems almost too perfect to be real. And so, I think it's challenging. We did discuss a little bit earlier before the show too, that there's maybe a little bit of writing when it comes to a documentary, and that has to do with maybe narration and, exposition, like telling about what's happening here. Maybe you could say some of the titles we get on the screen are kind of part of the writing of a documentary and have an impact on what we are expecting and how we feel about these characters and situations and that kind of thing. But man, you couldn't write these characters if you tried. And if you did, you would be a genius.
Stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just their personalities and their dialogue. And maybe it's not fair to call what a person actually said as, dialogue, but, man, you could only hope to have something that seems so interesting and authentic if you made it up. So.
I guess out of American movie, my very first question after I saw this a long time ago, the first time, was how in the world did anybody actually find these guys to even say, this is interesting enough that I'm going to actually follow these guys around? Or, hey, I found out that they started this thing, they never finished it, and you know what? They're going to start it up again. I'm going to do a documentary based on the rest of their adventure.
Right.
I mean, and hit
the
jackpot.
And how do you not come in like halfway through that? How do you come in early enough and take that chance?
Right.
Maybe nothing will come of this. Maybe that we won't get any footage that's worth, cutting together and making a documentary out of.
As Kyle pointed out before the show, the director was going to the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I think originally I was reading somewhere that he was just going to do like a behind the scenes type documentary about Northwestern.
Oh.
And it turned into filming of Northwestern, right? And then it turned into the whole, I can't do Northwestern, so I'm going to finish this movie that I started 3 years ago type of situation.
Well, that could definitely lead the hook.
Right.
It just, I guess, the comments about the character, I mean, seriously, I mean, there are people out there that are eccentric like these guys and are dedicated. Wow. That are dedicated like these guys. And, I do have to give them a little bit of credit, especially coming as a filmmaker to all the other filmmakers in the world, and us included here, that, we do have a passion. And to say, hey, we are going to make this movie, and then something happens and we put it on hiatus, and then we eventually just say, you know what, we need to finish this. I got to give them credit for that. But these guys are definitely a pick of the litter. It's like watching an amazing train wreck. And Mike himself, the musician, is he's just fascinating. Like I see millennials And it's just I don't know. To me, these kind of people and the people all around us, and that you've got a friend that is eccentric or random or whatever out there in the world that is just interesting enough that could make a movie. Like, you could make content about them because it's just fascinating. You're just fascinating, and that's not a mean thing. It's just there's a lot of variety of people out there. I mean, look at Mark's uncle. I mean, that guy was skin and bones, and yet Mark was willing to. Now, I don't know if he's willing to. We should talk about this later, but willing to help him out in life just because he was looking for money. But you know, his uncle was an old man who was super kind. You know, he was a nice guy. So I don't know. It doesn't surprise me, the peeps, I guess. Okay, I gushed enough about American movie. King of Kongs. you know, I don't know if I 100% agree that they made Billy. Well, I guess you guys kind of went back, but Billy Mitchell, he's just a dick. I've seen other interviews with him. No, seriously, like, he is just not. He's just a conceited jerk. Like, and yeah. I don't know how you get that way. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get that way playing Donkey Kong. And I have met, you know, as a gamer myself, I've met a lot of interesting people in the world, but someone who is so conceited to the fact that he wouldn't do anything live, he wouldn't actually like prove 100% that this was his score and that's what he was doing. And then you have someone like Steve who genuinely is working his ass off. I mean, he takes a wax pencil and draws on the screen of his Donkey Kong to make sure that he is marking out the correct places where he has to jump and know the patterns. You know, it's just it's quite an interesting. I mean, he is the villain in this, hands down, without any question. And I tell you what, Walter Day. God, what a guy. I can't imagine the shit that he's put up with.
Why did he look so familiar to me? I've seen King of Kong before. And yeah, and then I had forgotten that Twin Galaxies was based in Iowa.
Yeah.
But he seemed familiar to me from something else. And I don't know why. But I could be wrong.
Are you remembering him from Wreck-It Ralph? Because they modeled the arcade owner after him.
They did.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I steal trivia from you?
No, you didn't.
Sweet.
Are you thinking he looks like Ray Stevens? He looks a little bit like.
He does look like Ray Stevens,
especially when his guy's little.
Does anybody under 60 get that reference?
I do.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Is there anybody over 60?
Oh, yes, they called him the Streak. Boogity, boogity.
I don't know. I'm starting to get to this age where I'm making references that I realize 70% of the world doesn't understand.
I do that all the time on set. Like, I'll make a reference and I'll look over at the younger kid and he's just staring at me. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're too young, aren't you?
No fucking clue. We're aging out of relevance.
Anyways, I thought, I think the content and how these guys are portrayed, at least character-wise, acting-wise, I don't know.
We're talking about the writing right now.
Oh yeah, we're doing okay. Never mind then. I'll save that. So yeah. The only one comment I have about King Kong was they did maybe good for some people, bad for others, but the quick cuts where he would say one line and then they'll cut to somebody else saying something else and then they cut back. I feel that helps the story because he's referring to something and it's kind of like a flashback and then they cut back. And I thought that was kind of cool. I do like that. It helps the story so you know relevance and context of what's actually happening. So I kind of dug that, but maybe other people felt that was very jarring. I've heard people that don't like this movie, so
Well, I've always said that documentaries like these, not like a Ken Burns type documentary that is actually written out and planned out. Like these are hurry up, go out, catch all this, see what we can get. It's done in the edit, right? So that's where your writing is happening. It's happening in the edit bay. And I mean, for sure it's happening in the edit bay with American Movie, right? Your writing is happening right there. Where King of Kong, I have some trivia about this, but it's also happening in the edit bay, but there's also some discrepancies in King of Kong that I will talk about later.
Well, and also with King of Kong, you're telling a story that happened,
right?
And you're getting a lot of, previous recorded on VHS or whatever, and you're mixing all that in. Whereas like American Movie, I'm sure he had the opportunity to go through and actually shoot a couple of days and even try to edit some of that together of what he got, or say, we didn't really get anything good today, and so he could potentially edit as he went. I don't know if that actually happened, but it was happening while he was doing it. Whereas King of Kong, there was a lot of, we got this footage and this footage over here and these guys, and we had to drag some guys in and say, do you remember this? And so that does actually add to that editing.
Right. Okay. Does anyone want to add anything else to the writing/editing category? No?
Can we be positive that Mark's mom didn't edit any of American Movie? Just because he needed somebody to do it.
They all seem like they knew what they were doing. They really did.
Hey,
they were like doing all the edge numbers.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I got to give them credit for for editing with film.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, back then, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, back then it would have been 96, 97. It's like if you wanted to make a movie, it's either that or VHS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why there were so many money problems right there, is the film stock.
Shit's expensive.
Film stock.
And having a camera to shoot it on.
And then develop it and everything. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. They probably didn't do dailies.
Super time consuming. Yeah.
I wonder if did he talk about negative?
Anyway,
we can get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Let's put it to a vote. Tom.
I gotta go King of Kong.
Andrew.
I'm going with American Movie.
Kyle.
It's close to me, but I'm going to go with King of Kong.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, we're going on the writing category.
Correct.
I think with writing, I'm going to have to go with King of Kong.
All right. Okay, here we go. I have 2 pages of notes. Holy crap.
Okay, everybody settle in for the trivia.
King of Kong
King
of Kong originally began as a documentary about competitive gaming in general. It wasn't until the film was well into production that the crew discovered the events surrounding Weeby and Mitchell. And then they decided to refocus the film entirely on this rivalry. This largely accounts for the amount of coverage the film gives to minor players, such as elderly Qbert Champion. By the time production ended, over 300 hours of video had been shot.
Wow.
And my guess is it's all mini DV, right? I mean, that's around the time.
Tape.
Yeah, mini DV.
Still
tape.
A physical.
Right.
Medium.
And so there were really only on IMDb there are only 3 pieces of trivia for American Movie. This one is Mark says the word man 151 times in the movie.
It's like what there are movies where they count the F word.
Yes. Yes.
It's like
so what you're saying is we just invented the next documentary drinking game.
Yes.
We'll be
you
dead.
would be dead.
Yeah.
He uses man like people use
That is correct.
like just to fill stuff in. It's great.
Yeah.
man.
I kept thinking of The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, the dude.
Yeah, the dude. Every time I heard man, I'm like, oh, the dude. But then pretty soon, like through the movie, you stop paying attention to that, right? It's used so much, your mind just kind of passes over it. All right, let's move on to the second round, acting.
Yeah, well, again, that's another category that's a little bit difficult for documentaries because technically they're not acting. But do you guys think that
characters,
they are characters? But do you guys think that if you are being filmed and you know you're being filmed, that you are in some way or another acting?
Always.
Yes.
You're not necessarily 100%.
Psychologically proven.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes,
It changes.
You're not entirely genuine.
that is correct.
So they are kind of acting. Do you think that if you were filmed for a long enough period of time, like they did this day after day for several weeks or months, that you might be acting a little bit less? You might become more comfortable with it and might be more yourself?
I'd say King of Kong, yes, but I would say no on American Movie. Mark had a pretty good camera sense. You know,
Yes,
he you know, for all his faults, he can compose shots, and he understood the language of film, and you know, he had some setbacks and everything, but you know, he knew what he was doing. You know, there are multiple times in the movie where I was like, well, I don't know how we would have done that in '96. So I think he had very much had camera awareness. You know, he knew where he wanted himself to be in the frame. You know,
Right.
so
I'll tell you this: if Mike Schenk is acting, he needs an Oscar.
Oh yeah,
That's correct.
Because,
That's correct.
because he looks like someone who's been taken over by an alien who is pretending to be a human. Nothing against the guy, but there are times when you're like, there is no one home right now.
it's just his laughing.
I will.
You're like,
I will.
when is this guy not high?
I will reiterate. Mike is my spirit animal.
Okay,
I love
but-
that guy.
But again, I mean, yes, I would agree that you're going to probably tone down. But I mean, I think some of the people in American Movie are just, like the uncle is a great example. He's old. He doesn't care. He's just being the uncle.
I don't.
And then
think
he kept on
cares if
looking
there's a camera
into the camera. He would say something and then look into the camera.
But I have actors that do that. And I've told them, don't look at that camera, and they'll say their line, and then they look right in the camera, and is that good?
Don't stop until I say cut.
And it's like, nah, well, so I mean, I can totally. I mean, if you had a camera pointed in your face, and it's just be natural, and then you say something, and then you're like, is that what you wanted me to say, or was that okay? Or I mean, I think his age definitely had to part and play with that, but. I don't know. I mean, I just think there's some genuine moments in that film, and there are ones that are definitely set up. But the part when he's actually like recording some of the ADR from his uncle sitting in the car, I think that shot was planned. Like it's very well done at that scene. But there are other ones where he's like helping his grandpa or his uncle into the bathtub, and he's helping him get around and get some food in him and stuff. I think those are some genuine moments that he's taking care of his family at the same time.
Right, and those are the kinds of things that seemed that they were interesting because they seemed like so heartwarmingly genuine.
Yeah,
they didn't seem like acting. Like who. I don't know that I would bathe, 80-year-old uncle.
And maybe he was just, if I do this, he's more willing to give me the $50,000.
Maybe, but at times it didn't really.
It didn't feel like
that. No, it didn't feel like that. There were times when you could tell he was trying to extract money from Uncle Bill.
Yeah.
And then there were times where it's like, oh, he's actually just going to hang out and take care of him, and making the Thanksgiving dinner and
that first scene
that's when the veil, to me, there are certain times like that when that veil of acting kind of disappears and we're seeing these people as genuine people.
Yeah, like
then there are times when they're talking about their project or whatever, their goal or whatever, and then we get there's a little bit of acting, even from people who are not intentionally acting.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end when he is like hanging out outside and Bill's sitting on the front porch of his trailer and he's sitting there and he's like, so do all your dreams come true? Like, that seemed very set up. That'd be something that you'd be like, hey, look at the camera and tell him that, I made all your dreams come true, buddy. But, the scene when he first goes over there and he's talking about all his records and the music and stuff, that seems like a very genuine moment as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe Uncle Bill was the star of this movie.
He was kind of a star. Yeah. But you know what? And these guys are, I talked about this in writing, but these guys are like infinitely like quotable. Like the stuff they say, I'm like, really? Are these people really saying these things? This is fantastic. I don't know. It's hard to judge acting in these. Now, I felt there was a difference between the two, and that King of Kong, they seemed more genuine. You can make an argument that the way they were presented, they become these archetypes. There's the hero and the villain, and the henchman and all this kind of stuff. But they seem to be more genuinely themselves.
Well, there was a lot of interviews, like me sitting down and being like, okay, so tell me your name. What are you doing here? How long have you been playing Donkey Kong or Q*bert or Pac-Man or whatever game you're playing? Why are you here? Do you know these guys over here? So there's some of that I would allude to, that genuality. Is that a word?
It is now.
Okay. Well, the genuality of a person, because, when you're being asked questions, in a sense, you're somewhat honest. Now, granted, you may be talking it up a little bit to make yourself look cool, but I mean, you're at least being you, because you're just being asked these questions, as opposed to these guys are going to follow us around now. So look good for the camera so we don't look like idiots.
Dead air. Okay.
Wow. Well,
so yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about characters.
Mike can edit that.
Talk about characters and acting in a documentary movie, right? So if we're talking about the characters, the way it breaks down in King of Kong is they're so black hat, white hat, good guy, bad guy. But if you want to say that that's being manipulated, whenever I hear Billy Mitchell talk, everything just rings completely false to me. I just feel like he's full of shit. And later on, learning about him and all that stuff, you realize that's true. And I think that's one of the things that makes him a compelling bad guy in this movie. If he didn't say so many blatantly false things and was like, turns out to be a cheater, you wouldn't hate him so much. You just think the guy's ultra competitive. But Steve is such a likable, relatable character that it's hard not to see him as a hero. And talking about American movie, I think Mark says one of the things that hit me the hardest as just a creative person and someone who creates things, when he's talking about working on a film and making all the excuses not to finish it, because once you finish it, he says something like the consequences are greater, because while it's a work in progress, you can always make excuses, you can always shelve it or whatever. But once it's done, then you have to show it to people and invite criticism. And that enters into an entirely different world which for me personally has been something difficult when creating things, like finishing those things and giving them to people. So I thought that was a really interesting insight into his life and the filmmaking process, that struggle to create and to not be afraid of what happens after that.
Yeah, and I would definitely attest that to. I think we mentioned it before that. I mean, he actually is a good filmmaker. Like, put away all of the funny shenanigans in his life and all the things that were going. I mean, he honestly knows what he's doing. I mean, not a lot of people can edit film. Not a lot of people can shoot on 8mm or Super 8 and be able to frame and be able to follow the rules well. I mean, it was a difficult time to be able to say, I'm going to make a movie. You know, it's different than it is today. Today, you can pick up a $500 camera, or for that matter, a cell phone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, pick up your cell phone.
And you can make a movie, right? Yeah. And it may or may not be good, but you learn from it. You can throw it out there. People throw stuff out on YouTube all the time that's terrible, but they don't care. It's a different time than back then. So to really put the passion into, I'm making a movie, really stands for, the fact that he is actually a relatively good filmmaker that does know what he's doing and does have a vision in his head to where it's like, I want to get to the light. I'm afraid of the light, but I want to get there.
Right. And that's one of the cool things about it is that we've all been there, and we all made our first film. And so I was going to save this for the end, but I'll throw this in now. So I saw this in college, and I watched it with my now wife, and she's always really good at calling me out on my bullshit. So I'm just like tearing into Mark, like, oh my God, he's like, oh my God, I was like calling him a loser, and I'm just like, just completely laying into him. And she just looked me right in the eye, and she goes, so when's your film premiere? And I was like, oh, fair enough. And so
would you like some aloe vera for that burn?
I mean, yeah. And it just kind of made me take a step back, and I hadn't seen American movies since that conversation. And so
Let the bitter taste in your mouth.
sitting down, I'm really glad we got to do this, because sitting down and watching it the second time, I really like that it was still burning. And I could appreciate, I appreciate what Mark does so much more now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a completely different movie. It's still very funny. And there's some parts of it that are kind of questionable, but looking, there's this cool two-layer thing that's going on in the movie is that Mark is trying to make his movie, and he has some talent there. It seems like if he just find a writer would help him out, that kind of thing. But then on top of that, there's this documentary happening that's encasing everything, and the documentary does a really wonderful job. Like, there's this really cool dichotomy of Mark, who has all of this passion and skill, and he can't quite get what's in his head out onto film. And then you have Mike, who is the most talented person in the entire movie, who has no ambition whatsoever.
That's right.
And I loved how they stuck these scenes in where he's like playing the guitar blindfolded, and it's beautiful, and he's very, very good. And then there's this whole other story about, Mike playing lottery tickets and Mark working on his film, and where are you going to put your money in to try, how are you going to make it big? And it's so well crafted. And there's all of these little things that you're just like, so I'm going to go to the convenience store and shoot him buying lottery tickets. And like, how do you know that was going to become this thread through the whole thing?
Right. Well, unless he had talked about it, right? Unless it was happening, you're like, okay, I've got to add this to the story.
Right. Yeah. But to have that scope,
right?
To say something that's very
the
mundane.
Awareness, right? The awareness of that.
It is, and it's just absolutely stunning. And it's so well done. I just like blew through all my categories.
Yeah, you did. I want to point out that watching it the first time, like I was, oh, this is great, and watching it again for this. A lot of stuff hit home, right? You're out with your friends trying to make a movie. You're the one with the vision. You're the one with the gear and stuff, and it's your passion. Yet they are willing to help you. They are willing to put their time and effort into helping you. And
Blindly.
we have all of us have been there.
Yeah.
All of us on this podcast have been there where our friends are like, yeah, I'll waste a weekend with you. Or yeah, I'll come out at midnight and help you do that. And it really kind of hits home, I think, for us. And I think for a lot of filmmakers out there, right? A lot of people that are trying to make a go at their dreams. This is their movie. You know, he's risking everything. I mean, he doesn't have a lot because he is risking so much at trying to make movies and make a name for himself. And this is what he wants to do. Where King of Kong, for me, being younger when I watched it, I thought it was entertaining, but now that I'm older and I have a child and a wife and a house, mortgage, it really hits me on a different level than what American Movie does. Like this guy has this passion. He wants to get the top score, and he has a wife that is supporting him, and he's still trying to be a good dad. And it kind of, both movies hit you at different angles, right? One hits you a little more personally. The other one hits you more, especially for us as a career choice or as a passion that we have, where the other one kind of hits you at home, where it almost feels, Weeby said at one time, he goes, I've just gotten so much shit from the referee, it's hard for me to believe him when he's telling me the truth, right? Or something like that. There was a line of that in there. And the other one that rings true for me in American Movie is, there's so many movies out there. Why does he believe that he can find an audience for his movies? Right? There's so much out there. And that was back in 1996.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
Distribution was such a bitch.
Right. Look at it now, though.
Yeah.
Where Andrew said it, everything is so much easier for us. And by easier, I mean we have a camera on our phones. We can go out and buy a $500 camera that we can shoot on. And if you work at it and you throw your lights in and you start knowing actors and everything, you can actually make a film and get it out there. But then it gets lost. Mm-hmm. And back in 96, I feel like there was more of a chance. More of a chance to get noticed, where now, well, maybe not, because there's so much out there now, but it's so much easier for people to come across you, right? Because of the internet. So I'm going around in circles here, and I'm totally throwing us off. I'm throwing us off the
I would
category, but
I guess I would say the difference though is you have a bigger accomplishment when you made a movie and you didn't have the technology or the distribution, and I mean distribution as in like YouTube's and Vimeo and wherever else you can put it. But you had more of an accomplishment that you finished this movie, because now like I said, any 10-year-old with a phone can make a movie and put it on YouTube. It may or may not be good, but that opportunity is there very simply. Whereas they had to work. They had gear that was very difficult to afford and or get a hold of, lenses and tripods, lights, and then the editing and all that other stuff. That it was a bigger accomplishment. It was a bigger deal.
Right. Well, and I noticed I was really trying to pay attention. We're totally off.
Sorry.
But the equipment, I noticed it was his camera tripod. He used a lot of natural light, and I noticed in the kitchen scenes he was using what I think of as those clamp lights, right, with one bulb in them, which I believe all of us have used on our movies. I still have 2 or 3 that I actually use for movies.
They're great for gels.
They are great. But it was just kind of neat seeing it still being used then, still being used now. And but equipment wise, you're right. It was pricier, and even film stock, which we talked about. Now it's all ones and zeros, where if you go back to when King of Kong was being made, it's mini DV tape, which mini DV tape was not expensive, but it also wasn't cheap. And if you think about that, 300 hours of footage to comb
It's
through,
like 300 tapes, probably.
right? And you've got to sit there and upload all of those into your
Per
NLE,
hour.
Yeah.
right?
Like in real time.
In
Like
real
that-
time.
Yeah,
that
you got to
wasn't-
capture that footage at
Sure,
one to one.
it's faster than working on film, but it's
'cause you don't
still
have to
not as
redevelop
fast
it and
now.
all that
Right,
stuff.
correct.
But
All right, so back to characters, acting, whatever you want to call it. Let's get back to that because I totally took us off track. But I was just trying to make a point about the characters really on my second, third, whatever viewings of these. They've really connected to me more than when I watched them the first time. Like what Tom was saying, Tom hit it on the head. Was, oh yeah. The first time I watched it, I was being a jerk towards Mark, and now I watch it and I'm like, oh, I got it. I get it. Because I've been there.
Speaking of being hit on the head, the scene in the kitchen with the cupboard is probably the best scene.
It's so
Yeah.
It's like I was looking at the storyboards and I thought we had done this before, and I was hoping we would never have to do it again.
But then they show the storyboard, which is something I would draw, and I'm a terrible artist. It's great.
And then the guy's like, "Yeah, I scored this, so it would be easier to break."
Oh yeah, that guy scored it. The guy who ends up in jail later.
Yeah.
I shot a film and I had an actor who he wanted to do it on one take, and I'm like, we should probably practice. No, we're gonna do it one take. It'll be fine. And ended up hitting his head on a metal bar in the take. And the take is the only one we got because he was like, because he threw himself on the ground and he hit his head on the metal bar. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I look at a scene like that and I'm like, yeah, I've been there.
Yep. I think that's why we connect with it more.
That actor is a trooper because he hit his head once, then he backed up and let Mark keep throwing him.
Yes.
I mean, dude had no self-preservation. Was just like,
if there's
whatever,
be more real, it's good. Just go.
Oh yeah, it made me wonder.
Suffer for your art.
This is kind of a meta category for American movie because there's actors within
that's
the
true.
documentary.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right, should we put it to a vote?
Yes.
The only other thing I was going to say about the characters is, Mike, you had said something about how King of Kong, it really, the fact that Weeby is very much family oriented, and there's the one scene where he's playing Donkey Kong and I think it's his daughter, or maybe it's his son, but is in the background saying, "Stop playing Donkey Kong, Dad."
It was during the tape. It was during his run, his high score run. Wipe my butt.
And once again, but it's that moment that you have a family, and you're neglecting your family for your dream,
right?
For your I guess hobby or whatever you want to call it. I think that rings true in both films of both of these main characters that they're giving up a lot to make this dream happen and still trying to balance that life at the same time.
Yep. Nope. Good point. All right, let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
Why do I go first? This wasn't my category. I gotta go with American movie because of Mike.
Gabe.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with American movie as well because I felt like maybe there was actually maybe a little bit of acting going on there.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah, man, it's like I won $200 on a scratcher. I'm definitely voting for American movie.
$200 would be like a fortune for those guys.
He did. He's like, I don't want to tell Mark because they'll ask for some of it.
That was great.
Right, but did you notice that when he won in the 50, he was kind of like, oh, I don't want to tell anybody about it. But then he and Mark's relationship evolved a little bit, and he couldn't wait to tell him that he won $200.
Yeah.
Like, shit like that. How do you get that?
Half of it
That's
to his dad.
that's a week of
I
shooting.
gave $100 to my dad.
Tom.
Oh, dude.
Tom, what do you vote?
This is actually so American.
American movie. All right. Speaking of American movie, the elevator sequence that is briefly shown as part of the movie Coven, the actors that are portraying the doctors are wearing their driver's licenses on their lab coats instead of hospital staff identification badges.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, you got to use what you got, right?
That's right.
My budget's $0.
Yes. While King of Kong claims that Billy Mitchell held the Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. records since 1982 before Steve Wiebe came along, there were numerous scores higher than Mitchell's validated by Twin Galaxies in the 1980s that went missing during Mitchell's time as a scoreboard editor.
See, that's
shock.
that's all what you call
Yeah.
a conflict of interest.
Yes, so here we go.
He's holding these records and he's editing this
Yeah.
stuff and he's inspecting the boards
Yeah.
of these games.
And never going to do it live.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's also best friend. He's got a crony and a judge
Yes.
and a referee who love him.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and the
This
rep.
shit's like politics.
Yeah.
It's like cronyism.
Yes. It's like a training course for politics.
You think video games were bad back then? You should see them now. The competition.
His
Oh yeah,
1982
speed running is a thing now.
Yeah.
Ugh.
His 1982 Donkey Kong score was also beaten in 2000 by Tim Schwerby. I think I'm saying that right. It's Sczerby. Schwerby, whose name is omitted from the film but seen on a computer screen for a moment when Walter Day is entering Mitchell's taped score. And there are actually interviews that I watched with him talking about it. He was just totally they omitted him from the film to make the whole,
Tension?
Wiebe versus Mitchell more tense. So yeah, there was a lot of bad blood in there, especially when you're considering that Billy Mitchell is essentially the king of Twin Galaxies, and whatever he says goes, because everyone worships him, especially Walter Day.
Yeah.
Whew. Like you said, that is definitely a character. All right, moving on. Third round, directing.
I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong, directing a documentary is really about making sure you're where you need to be with the camera to capture the things you need to capture to create your movie, but also knowing that if something changes or something new happens, you need to shift the focus of your narrative and keep your story evolving.
Correct.
But it's probably also about making sure you're asking the right questions or telling the right stories to elicit usable, good responses from your subjects. And I think that's something King of Kong did really well, factoring in the things they managed to catch on camera and make them front and center and keep the narrative tight and focused on these two characters and all the other ancillary people who move around them. They did an excellent job at that. Also, telling Steve about, needing to break a record by a certain date, recording him, being emotional about things and capturing such a difference in personality between him and Billy Mitchell, I thought was really well done. And it helped their case of telling the story of rivals. So I think that was great. Also, you do have to point out a little bit that the movie looks nicer than American movie, but it was also shot a decade later and with a different budget. You know what I mean? But American movie, I think if you spent 2 weeks with Mark Borchardt and his friends, you'd have a movie. You have no idea what it might be about when you start, but you'd have something to edit into a movie because they're just spinning content constantly. All you have to do is point a camera at Mark and let him talk, and he just comes out with things that are like gold. He's a really interesting, rich subject for that matter. And some of the off the cuff stuff that he says that I don't think he's planning or thinking, oh, this is going to be funny. And it's just the way the director chooses to frame it and then later on have it edited. The scene that killed me is when he's like, I guess my mom's just going to have to go out in the woods. I guess there's nothing else to it. He's got no one to play his coven of druids. So he's going to drag his 60-year-old mom into the woods. And in his mind, there's no question. His mom's just got to go out to the woods. I mean, there's nothing else they could do about it.
She's got shopping to do, though.
She's got shopping to do. I mean, that shit. Gabe said it earlier. You can't write that. If you do, you're a genius. But stuff like that happens in these films is so funny. And it's brought to front and center, and it shows the interaction between these people. And I love documentaries. And this is one of the things I love about them the most, is that the things that happen are often more interesting, spontaneous, and crazy than anything you could script. Even though, there is some tweaking and changing in the editing process, the stuff you capture of real life, real life is just so bizarre sometimes. And people are such characters that I find this stuff endlessly fascinating. And there was actually a time I watched this movie with my girlfriend, and about 30 minutes in, she said, are these people real when we were watching American movie? And I said, yeah, they're making a real movie. This is a documentary. And she goes, oh my God, that makes it so much worse. Because I mean,
you could think of it as like almost like an Office kind of thing.
Yes, right.
It's like, well, it's a mockumentary. Like these people really aren't real. They're acting.
Yes.
And that's what
absolutely.
I felt that. I felt that at times when watching American movie.
They're such characters and they're so big. It's like, and part of that is probably you're acting with the camera in your face. And part of them is just, that's the natural way they are. But man, it is fascinating to watch. I think in both of these movies. So I think the directors did great jobs in both these films at capturing the really important stuff, focusing on where the narrative was interesting, and making sure that even though they're capturing real life things, the shots are interesting, the shots are colorful, they have depth to them. They're doing the work that they can. They can't always plan for what they're going to capture, but they're doing the work that they can do well.
Yeah.
I would never want to shoot a documentary.
It would be hard.
I don't think I would be very good at it.
I've been a part of 3 of them. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I could say there's one that I have been a part of. That's true. But it wasn't like we were sitting down and doing all the individual interviews and actually putting like we were shooting things as they happened, and we then edited kind of all together. Mm. And I guess was a little bit different than like where I picked a topic and I went and I said, I'm going to make a documentary about this. And so I guess, yeah, I have helped shoot a documentary.
Tom does it frequently.
Mm.
I mean, Tom, if there's anyone that does it more than any of us, it's Tom on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Oh.
But his mic's muted. And he's probably not listening to us right now.
He's doing something else. We're giving him a compliment for a while.
Yeah.
I'm almost done. I was working on the Cinestatic Moster. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we do is we, interviews and just kind of hang in the background and try to put a story together every Saturday. So, I can't imagine doing, because we do the same day edits. So we have to edit in 2 hours. And it's, it's a challenge, but it's, I don't know. The stories are always there, but it's
have you ever shot anything and then expecting to go into it one way and it ended up being a completely different way?
Yeah. I mean, that happens pretty regularly. I mean, the stuff Mike's talking about is, the weddings that we shoot. Those are, I mean, they're still kind of, I don't say color by numbers, but they all have a format and the order of events that things happen. And it's not often that things drift too far from that,
Sure.
But yeah, it's I guess that is the closest thing, to it. So
Well, I mean, you're documenting someone's day. You're documenting the culmination of a year or two of planning in a day.
Right.
And you're capturing it. That's a documentary.
Right. And it's really amazing how often shit just happens in front of the camera,
Sure.
I would say probably 20% of the time, I probably missed 20% of the really cool stuff. I wasn't recording, and I'm not one of those that's like, oh, hey, can you do that again? I really try not to do that. I just look for genuine moments, and it just happens. So I've always wanted. I mean, I always told people if I win the lottery, that's what I want to do. I just want to make documentaries because there's so many great stories out there to tell. I'm really good at coming up with ideas for documentaries a week late. So there'll be like a city council meeting or a crime where it'd be like, damn it, I wish I'd had a camera there, and I could have. This would be such a great story to get it from the ground up. And I always come up with a reason why I shouldn't do it. Where it's just like, oh yeah, but I have to follow this asshole around. I don't want to do that.
There's a lot of podcasts that are based on true stories that I've listened to that I always thought, oh, this would make a really interesting documentary. But yeah, I mean, I think, maybe I'm speaking only for myself, but I would say that a lot of us have shot weddings at least once in our lifetime and edited those out. And I guess I never thought of that as a documentary in that light, but
well, it's true. It is.
It is.
Yeah,
and I'm not. I never thought of it that way. That it is. But
now, sure. After years of doing it, like Tom has, and like I have helping him. Now I'm not full time with Tom, but I go in and I'm not. I'm a side bitch. But
wow, this is getting better.
You go in and you know what you're looking for. Right?
Sure.
You're looking for those, like he said, genuine moments, and you usually know around when that's going to happen.
Sure.
And one thing that I always do whenever I mic up the groom, because we mic the groom when he goes up, is I tell him, I'm like, look, I'm not recording right now, but once you guys start, that's when the red button gets hit and everything that you say is on ones and zeros, and he goes,
Forever.
oh God, oh Lord, and don't worry about it. Just be yourself, enjoy your time, and don't even think about it. And by the time they're up there, they're nervous about everything else. They're not even worrying about the microphone. But if I could have $1, if I could have $1 for every time that I hear, now's your chance to run.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there rolling my eyes like, okay, yeah, that's original. But
see, and that's one of the things that we're dealing with the industry right now is that we have couples coming to us saying, hey, can we have all the raw footage? And I'm just adamantly against it.
Yes.
Although I'm starting to waver a little bit, but I can't have hot mics out there, and I'll be damned if I'm going to go through 20 hours of footage once you have multiple cameras running, making sure that nobody says anything dumb or there's a bad look or the bride's getting dressed and there's a bridesmaid in her underwear in the background. I mean, I'm not going to go through and look for all of that stuff. So
right.
It's just it's I'm a filter, and even I mean, I'll be honest with you, even in the moments like when we're doing the vows and we're cutting back and forth from the vows, if I don't have the right look from the groom, I'm gonna shuttle that forward a little bit and get a smile on there, as opposed to him just kind of staring off into space. So
yeah,
that's our job.
Right.
is to provide that filter. So
yep,
right, and that kind of brings up one of my thoughts about directing a documentary. That when we hear that it's a documentary, we often think of it as truth. This is a presentation of fact. But the director of a documentary has a lot of control over the presentation of that quote unquote truth or fact. They can manipulate how you feel about a particular situation or a particular character and that kind of thing. And I think that's one of the interesting things about directing a documentary is maybe it's not technically written, but they can definitely impact the direction of the story by what they capture and how they put it together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could,
Yeah.
you have,
And so, and Mike might have some trivia about this with the King of Kong, because we think of Billy Mitchell as an, unabashed douchebag through the whole thing. He's the villain. And, Steve Wiebe is he's the good guy. But there's some indication that maybe it's not quite as polarized or as bad as we see it in the film, and that the director made some strategic decisions about what to include and what to omit to influence how the audience feels about a particular person or situation. And I think that's really interesting. And I think a lot of people who aren't in filmmaking, who aren't interested in the whole process of filmmaking, may not think about that when they're watching a documentary. They think of everything that they see as just unfiltered truth, and I think that's not the case at all.
right.
Yeah, and I find that I think sometimes we feel like documentary filmmakers are at a disadvantage because they don't have a lot of control over the story and what's happening and what they get and that kind of thing. But really, they're very powerful, and we have to be conscious of their power to manipulate what we feel about these things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
Under the veil of truth.
I mean, we talked about the camera changing people. I worked on a documentary about a gay bar in town, and there were people that were coming in, saw the cameras, saw the lights, and left. They just did not want to be seen in there, and it was difficult for them. And I felt bad about that, right? Because that is their safe place. That's their place where they can go to be themselves. And I brought it up to one of the owners, and they're like, "They'll be fine. They'll come in when you guys aren't here. It's okay." But I also noticed a change in a few of the people that we were following around. They were not their charismatic selves. And by charismatic, I don't mean that as a slur. I just mean as in good content, right? Once they realized and they remembered that there's a camera behind them with a little red light on it, they would freeze up. They would clam up. So it can have the opposite effect too, where, we discussed that, maybe Mark was playing it up, but there's also those people, and I would probably be one of those people where I would clam up more, where I would not be myself.
There are times when Mark decides to chug a beer that I think are completely played up because he looks at the camera and then just starts chugging a beer.
Right.
So the one where he's yelling from the basement and he just tips an entire bottle of beer up in his mouth.
And somebody very
I absolutely love
overtly
that.
says it's 10:30 in the morning too.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's like 10 in the morning or 10:30 in the morning.
I absolutely love the fact though he's down there doing an interview, chugging a beer. And he's like, "Yeah, I finally found what I was looking for. I'll be right back up." How long was he down there? I want to know how long he was down there. There's so many unanswered questions that I have that I want to go hang out with those guys.
Yes.
But directing, it can, having a camera at either a wedding or a live event, or you're doing a documentary on a certain place, person, or thing, it can change how people act around you. And that's how we started off the show. That's how we started off the writing, where, how can we change? And it definitely does change the people. And it just depends on who that person is.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think another one of the superpowers of a documentary director is to be able to sift through massive amounts of footage and pick out the right parts to weave together a cohesive story. Because
that's where
you said
good notes and good memory come into play.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, you had mentioned earlier something about 300 hours of footage for King of Kong, right? Something in that range.
That is correct.
How do you boil that down to the important parts, the meaningful parts, and make it sub 2 hours? I mean, it wasn't even 2 hours, was it? An hour 40, something like that.
Yeah, I'll look at it.
Yeah. So I think that's another superpower. It is to be able to ingest
79 minutes. 300 hours down to 79 minutes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So how do you ingest all that footage, mentally and know these are the parts that we want?
Yeah, and pick and choose.
Interns.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's
sure
a damn
there's-
good point, Tom. Interns.
And Mike Shank.
And Mike Shank.
He'll come and look at the footage and do edge numbers for you.
But I'm guessing that there's also a lot of that where like shooting a real movie where you have these moments or these scenes where you're like, God, I really want to put this in there, but it really breaks the flow where we're at, or
Sure.
and so I'm sure there are even those where it's like it's not just even sifting through. It's like, God, this is a really good moment. I really want this in there, but I don't know how to make it work.
Yeah, I'm sure they have to leave a lot of good stuff behind too, and that those, they're making decisions, hard decisions to leave stuff out too.
All right, let's vote.
All right. Voting time. Kyle.
Oh boy. I am going to go with King of Kong on this one.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go King of Kong as well.
All right. Tom.
What? No, American movie had better direction.
All right. Andrew.
I'm going to go with King of Kong for this one.
All right.
Even after what Tom said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all
All right,
are
American
morons.
Yeah.
Flaming barrel coming your way.
Full of poo. Several of those depicted in The King of Kong were... let me start that over. Several of those depicted in The King of Kong, including Wiebe and Mitchell themselves, claim that it does not accurately depict events. This is what we've been talking about. For example, Wiebe and Mitchell were, and still are, on much friendlier terms than is suggested. And another player's record was in place during some of the events, but is omitted, which we already talked about. The director has conceded too many of these claims in statements, arguing that the fictionalized account is more entertaining. So
Yeah, but
that's kind of the balance too.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
but
there's kind of a
you
limit.
don't want to make a documentary that nobody wants to watch. You got to make it entertaining too.
That's true.
But there's also moments when like Wiebe is playing at the one tournament and Billy finally actually shows up and he
just
walks over
around.
and Steve even says, "Oh, hey Billy," and Billy's like, "I don't want to spend too much time with some of these people."
Right.
I mean, he's just a dick.
Yeah,
like
total
that.
dude.
That's
He's
like,
a total
that's not
D-bag. And he
that's
keeps
not a
hovering
friend.
around where Steve can see him just to try
Yeah,
and throw him
you
off
can
the
see
game.
him, but he's not.
Yeah.
They're not interacting.
That's not a hey, we're
Yeah.
buddies.
Dick move.
I believe Tom has some trivia as well for this next bit. The movie theater featured in the end of American Movie is the Times Cinema in the Washington Heights neighborhood on Milwaukee's west side. It specializes in obscure and independent films and is Milwaukee's sole surviving independent movie theater.
It is, and the best man at my wedding is in the movie. He is crossing the street going into the premiere, and he's in there when he was 14. And then his dad is the sunrise sunset guy. So Jake's dad was in the bathroom doing the sunrise sunset. That's Clark. And I know Clark as well. So yeah, they're
Sunrise, sunset.
yeah. I know it's funny, and it's funny because in college, his dorm was right next to mine, so we talked about this movie a lot, and I was watching it this time, and I knew that there was some connection to him, and then of course his dad's on screen, and I was like, son of a bitch, that's Clark. I forgot he was in this, and there's Jake. So
Name dropping.
totally.
Total name
personal
drop.
connections to this film.
You're absolutely right. So and Jake pops up in our our 48, and he pops up in our film sometimes too. So
Did you hail from that area, Tom?
no, I'm from Omaha, but we both
Oh.
went to school in Dubuque, so it was kind of a central location. Jake was my driver when we shot Las Cruces. He was the one that drove down to the border with me and got pulled over by D.
The
Second time. You were my first time. Thank you, which, by the way, I got a son out of the deal, turning around and coming back. It did work out well.
Yep.
My wife started ovulating, so I had to turn around and come back when we got to Oklahoma City. True story.
Very true story. Very true story.
Jake was the one driving the car to when we finally made it all the way down there, and then we got stopped by DEA on the way back, and so it was good. It was good.
DEA.
What?
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
they emptied the entire car on the side of the interstate because it was an Iowa plate, and we drove to Las Cruces, and then we got our shot on the interstate, and we drove back. That's very suspicious. To
Apparently.
when they see an Iowa car come to the Mexican border and turn around and drive straight back, that doesn't look good.
Note to self.
Note to self. All right.
Stay for a shot.
At least get dinner at Chili's. Anyway, let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
The very first thing I want to point out for overall is this is a very Midwestern podcast tonight, because both of these movies took place in the Midwest. At least parts of them for King of Kong with, our ties to Iowa, with Twin Galaxies, and of course, American Movie taking place all the way up there in the Milwaukee's areas. And I thought that was kind of cool that it's kind of local. So that's kind of neat, I guess. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's fun, but haha.
Yeah, the flyover states.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for jumping in there. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You got it, buddy.
Thanks. So we've got Wisconsin and Iowa in both of these films. So that was kind of cool. I saw A Fistful of Quarters quite a few years ago. Done a lot of, video gaming and such. So that's actually what turned me onto that documentary, was to actually see where competition gaming kind of really started. Because when some of these guys were doing it, going to the arcade was more of a treat at the time when I was quite a bit younger. And so seeing where competition gaming is and has evolved from is what really attracted me to the movie. And to watch it, it was just, it was amazing at how I don't know, roughneck these guys really are, and how competitive they are for cabinet games that we all take, well, I would say a lot of people take for granted now, where it's like, you just memorize the pattern and that's all you have to do. And people playing Pac-Man or Donkey Kong that are like, you got so far, and then don't realize that there are levels that people have probably never even seen in Donkey Kong, scores that people have never even seen in Donkey Kong, because we just never, you went to go and have fun, and you died on level 5 and not level 99, or even ran it as far as the kill screen. And so that, I would say, is what attracted me mostly to watching A Fistful of Quarters. And it really, I guess, maybe taught me a little bit about how competitive gaming has really evolved over the years, and where we are today. And I don't know, I kind of, it's kind of a little bit nostalgic and a little bit of a learning for people that are into that kind of gaming, regardless of what type of gaming you are, if it's big competitive or if you're just having fun, just to kind of see where that, a lot of people have said, well, first person shooters or FIFA or Madden and those kind of games are really where competitive gaming, we didn't get to see it until it was, on Twitch and stuff like that, which none of that is true. We used to do it a long time ago when you weren't even able to have a console at home. So minus all the characters and and the good versus bad. Watching that, I thought was pretty fascinating, and it's still enjoyable today to be able to watch some of that and really think back to it. Man, it was a different time. It really was. But yet there were people that were our age and younger and older that still have that drive that we have today. And it's a coin flip because it goes right over to American movie with us all being filmmakers. And I think we've talked a little bit about, the passion and that drive that we all have, that, hey, we have this idea, we want to make a movie, we wrote a script and we never quite got it done, or we got it done and we're never really happy with it, but it's out there. Or you've got that group of friends that you're like, we're going to make a movie. And then it's like, it's not quite what I wanted because we're just a bunch of amateurs. And the abilities and the way things have changed. And we've talked about all of that stuff, so I won't rehash it. But so it kind of hit me on that side of it too, because, I love making movies, and sometimes it is really hard to complete what you start. Sometimes it is really hard to even just get started in something that you have for a passion. So, both movies I think are very, very connected, at least to me personally, that do be able to see just other people's experiences in both of those subjects. So, it's a toss-up when I say overall of what I thought was better. I look at them as the content and how it's personalized for me, that it's difficult to say, this one's better than the other. I don't know. So that's my throw out into the ring, and someone picks that hat up, and it is. So
you kind of live in both of those worlds.
Yeah.
In the gaming and the filmmaking worlds. I'm not so much a gamer, but I found it interesting that they could take something that you think of as kind of silly and nerdy and meaningless and make it so interesting. I found I've seen King of Kong a couple of times now, and I still find it really compelling how these people kind of play off each other, and how they can make this into such a, somebody like Billy Mitchell making this such a big deal in his life. Like, this is so important to him. And Steve Wiebe, it's important to him because he just doesn't want to be overlooked. Like, he's like, hey, look, I'm really good at this, and some other douchebag is taking that away from me, and that's the only reason it's so important to him. And I just found it, really compelling on a human level that these people have spent so much effort and time on playing these games.
And I would say that rings true. I mean, that hasn't ended, and that's what I think is most fascinating about this, because there are people even today that, there are video game competitions for all different types of games that are now televised. There are video game champions that are being interviewed on ESPN. There are video game competitions on ESPN. It is becoming...
Well, it's called esports.
Yeah, it's a real thing, as in back then when it was like, a group of guys get together at an arcade and they set up cameras. Now people are streaming on Twitch. People are winning thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars playing, what people consider a waste of time in some cases, because they don't, esports, you can call it a sport, you can call it a skill, whatever you want to call it, but it takes talent to be able to do what some of these people do, to win that kind of money, to win that kind of fame. Everyone, I would assume, has heard of Ninja from Fortnite. Yes? No? Wow.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay. So
I have
Ninja.
well.
Yeah, Ninja is probably one of the most famous guys from Twitch. He was streaming playing Fortnite. He has played many games. He has won many competitions and is a household name, especially with kids. He makes so much money that him and his wife finally started donating how much he was making monthly. He was donating most of it to charities because he was making so much money he didn't know what to do with it. And that's all from playing video games. And it's amazing to see what you would consider a very simple start of guys sitting in an arcade with cameras around them, what it would be like if they were Twitch. I mean, they talk about how the internet is, we got to get this up on the internet, and they're kind of clumsy with the internet. And now today, people are streaming high definition 4K video of them playing games and have hundreds of thousands of people watching them like it's television daily, and giving money just so they'll keep playing so they can watch their channel. And it's astonishing to see where we have come from something so simple.
Well, and we talked about something similar with American Movie and how hard it would have been to try to make an independent film at that time when, you had technological limitations. You had to shoot on film, and, you had to get it developed and all that. And I think maybe the gaming thing has evolved in a similar fashion, and in that it's so much easier now. You can have all these games at home, and you can stream it over the internet, and people can see your stuff. They can see what you're doing real time. It's easier to distribute your product now than it ever has been. And, so I think there's a parallel there between the two.
Both of them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting too is the distribution channels have changed. The how hard it is to break through has stayed pretty much consistent. It's still really hard to do what they did back then, and it's really hard to be a millionaire esports star, and it's difficult to make $1 million on a movie that you make yourself. Yep. And that's kind of one of the interesting
reasons. Yeah, the reasons are different.
Right.
The challenge is similar, but the reasons are different. One was because it was so hard to get that stuff out there at one time. Right. Now it's so easy to get it out there. It's hard to rise above the static, above the clutter, And I think even major companies have that issue now. Yeah. I mean, think about how many streaming services there are, and how many of them produce their own original content, and how many of them are vying for our attention. Mm-hmm. There's so much stuff to watch anymore. Yeah. It's like, what do I watch? I can't watch it all. It's not even possible in one lifetime to watch all of this stuff. And even companies like Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and whoever, they all
Disney.
Have that same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you were to, when it comes to movies, I mean, Amazon and Netflix both have an independent channel, and you can actually go into deals with Amazon and or Netflix and submit films. For that matter, it's pretty easy to submit to big film competitions, Dances with Films and Sundance and things like that. I mean, anybody can pretty much do those type of things as an independent, but that doesn't mean you're going to go anywhere with it.
Right. I mean, the Amazon and Netflix, they're just like, it's just more spaghetti to throw at the wall for them.
Right.
One of them might be the next Stranger Things, so it's no skin off their nose. So the thing that's interesting to me in watching these is how my attitude has changed by, American Movie, when it first came out, I was just like laughing at these guys, and I kind of put them down, but I really looked up to the King of Kong guys, where I was just like, holy shit, I mean, that's amazing. But then I have played a lot of Donkey Kong, and I can't even fucking imagine playing that thing for 2.5 hours. I would lose my shit. I mean, how many different levels can there possibly be? I mean, I'd just be like, oh my God, I'd just go crazy. And now I'm just like, oh wow, the King of Kong guys, like, it's kind of a waste of time. And now I look more up to Mark. Sad. I look more up to the the Coven guys for what they accomplished, and the King of Kong guys. I'm kind of like, you kind of wasted your life here. Now that I know that your high score is buried under 6 other guys now, it's just I once had the high score of Donkey Kong. I mean, it's
yeah, but I mean, you look at again some of these guys that are doing Twitch that are what you would call professional streamers for these games. Ninja, he streams. He gets up and from like 9 to 4, he's streaming, and then he takes a break to spend time with his family, and then from like 7 to midnight, he's streaming and he's playing the same game that entire time. And I don't know how he does it.
I don't like watching people play video games in my living room. and like talking and interacting them and eating pizza with them. I don't even like not having a controller in my hand for that. I'll be damned if I'm going to watch some guy in Sydney fucking play Fortnite for 7 hours.
Right. But their character, it's not just them. People have created content. And so, it's their pitch, their video and how they react and how they talk and how they interact with the people. Cause I mean, that is one big, huge difference is like you said, they're kind of sitting in your living room. You can actually interact with these people. And I'm not saying that makes it any better, but I mean, all that is actually a part of that system, that world out there, that it's like watching TV. I mean, somebody will sit down and binge watch the same TV show. Look at how many people watch Friends, for God's sake, and that they'll watch the entire series over and over again. I could say it about Seinfeld. I've seen Seinfeld every episode tons of times. I would watch it again. And these people have the same kind of thing, but it's a video game television in a sense.
I totally get that. And look, I've tried really hard not to go old man. I mean, I really am. I listen to The Weeknd. I like some of Billie Eilish's music, but when people are like, when I'm 80 and they're like, when did you realize you were an old man? I'd be like, fucking esports. Like, that was the moment. That was the boat. I stepped back and went, you guys just go on without me.
Did you just say you listen to Billie Eilish music?
I like Bad Guy. I think Bad Guy's a great fucking song. So I'm not ashamed of it.
You're not old now because you like Billie Eilish? Come on.
When it comes to music, I try really, really hard to stay up with. I give everything a chance. So.
I don't.
And
I'm an old man when it comes to
old
music.
man exactly.
And everything's circular though, because it's like I listen to like The Weeknd, and I'm just like, well, this is just like late 70s, 80s pop music, and Daft Punk is has like disco beats to it. I try really hard to stay up with the music, but
I'm old man heavy metal. I just listen to heavy metal, and I don't like any other thing. It's ridiculous.
Music is one of those, I don't know. Music is one of those things where it still amazes me that people can take instruments and still make new sounds you've never heard before. And I'll give everybody a chance, except country music. Fuck those guys.
Wow. I could
that's
say
harsh, but I'm with you.
I could say the argument is the same though about movies, because there are short films that I've seen. There's a channel out there. It's called Dust, out on YouTube, and it's all independent science fiction films that are just small little people that have made shorts. Sometimes they're animated, sometimes they're live or whatever. And there are ones that you're like, okay, okay. And there are other ones you're like, wow, I'm super, super impressed at what they accomplished and how they did what they did. And you could say the same about video games. There are people out there that you're just like, how are they going? How can they do that? Like, that skill is amazing. And I don't know how they're able to actually use their mouse and keyboard or controller or whatever they're playing with and be able to accomplish what they're doing. And so, I mean, you could apply the exact same ideals or ideologic and ideals towards that music. So I don't know. I can see it all in the same light. I totally agree with you. It's just you can apply it to both film and gaming then.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything. I mean, everything's evolving, and I don't know. The esports thing it escapes me. Like, I don't know.
Damn kids, get off my lawn.
I'm a 36-year-old man who watches at least an hour a weekend of competitive Overwatch League with my equally old girlfriend. So I'm not old man in that sense. We watch people play professionally video games, which is still bizarre to me.
My girlfriend's nephew.
He's going to be really young, isn't he? This is going to make me feel
he's
bad.
15.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Like all he for a period of time, all he would watch was Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. These people playing Minecraft. Like if he wasn't playing Minecraft, he was watching other people playing Minecraft. Yeah. And I'm like,
my 13-year-old went through that. And then I was like, here's Fortnite. Just stop doing that.
Like what is the point? And I guess I can kind of see like, okay, getting like ideas and stuff. But seriously, it was like I just didn't understand like spending that much time watching other people playing the game.
It doesn't.
And you know, there's obviously some sort of skill there, but there's also a part of me that's like, how much skill does it really take to just spend all your time playing a video game? If you play it often enough, like anything else, you're going to get better at it. Yeah. You're going to get good at it. But you know,
but that's the competition part of it, because no matter how good you are, there's going to be somebody better, and so people strive for that.
But then, you know, it's also the kind of thing, I don't know, you can make this argument in like physical, like actual sport too. You know, it's like, you know, okay, gaming is not a sport. You're not an athlete at all. That's not a sport. It's a skill, but you're not an athlete. But let's just put that in perspective.
Old man game.
Yeah, I was
going to say,
what's the definition?
There's no way you're an athlete. It's skill.
I think you can
skill.
be
it's like
athletic.
It's like saying a guitar player is an athlete. There's
I think it's possible
skill.
to be
it's hand coordination. It's a lot of skill. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of repetition. But you're not an athlete. But anyway,
I think it's possible to be athletic and be good at games, but I don't think the two are necessarily related.
No, you don't have to be athletic to play games.
No. Although I'm not athletic, and I'm awful at video games. So there's no reverse correlation too. Because I'm fat and I can't get past the second screen on Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's fucking hard. Donkey Kong's really hard.
That's back when they played the games they made games just to suck down quarters.
If I had the gaming skills I had when I was a kid, I would be so much better at video games now. I don't know how the fuck I beat those games. Because when I go back and try to play them again, I have lost all of that skill.
It's hand-eye coordination, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's faster reflexes.
And remembering patterns.
Correct.
Because back then, those games. That's all they were patterns.
And that's why I'm a retro video game collector. I love the old video games because they were hard. They were, you know, you wouldn't play through like 3 hours of game and then be done. You would.
Well, the game's 30 minutes long, but it takes you 6 years to beat it.
Correct.
It takes so much time.
Where now, you know, you get through the game and then you have to download. You know, you can get a DLC to enhance the game, and it's like, why don't you just add all that in the first place and make it better? Right?
It's the quarter.
Money.
That's the quarter.
Well, it's their version of quarters. Yeah,
exactly.
That's more quarters.
They just get them at, you know.
But I have a
$60 at a time.
We're going to talk about this in my notes, but I have a MAME that I use to play all the old arcade games on my TV, and there's a reason that those games are so hard because it would just suck in quarters, right?
They want your money.
I have Captain America and the Avengers downstairs, an actual arcade cabinet, and we have played that on Sunday nights when the guys are over and we're just sitting there start adding more quarters, playing. It is difficult.
You should rig it so you don't have to put quarters in.
Oh, we don't have to put quarters in.
I know.
We don't have to put quarters in, but let's say add
quarters out that you put in that machine. It's like savings.
You're losing money on that machine, Mike. You got to stop going to get quarters from the bank.
There's a guy that comes over and gets it and takes it away every week. I don't know.
You're being robbed, Mike. You're being robbed.
All right. Do we have anything else to add in overall? Because I have a literal crap ton of follow-up for both of these movies.
I just want to say one quick thing.
Okay,
we don't watch a lot of documentaries, but I enjoy. I think it's something we should do more.
Oh,
documentaries are fantastic.
I agree with you. I love documentaries.
I'm looking forward to the suggestions, recommendations tonight.
Yes, so am I.
Not that you have to have a documentary. I don't want to panic anymore.
No, you should have a documentary. All right.
We need to have recommendations.
Yeah, we're supposed to have recommendations, Gabe.
Yes, for the 108th time in a row.
Yeah. 108 months in a row.
All right, Andrew. Let's put it to a vote.
I am going with American movie.
All right. Tom.
Yeah, American movie.
Gabe.
Wow. This is tough. I would watch both of these again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think because I identify a little bit with it, I would go with American movie as well.
Okay. And Kyle.
Boy, I'm just going to be a contrarian. I'm going to go with King of Kong.
All right. Oh, boy. All right. So there's been a lot going on in Billy Mitchell's life recently.
Like recently?
Yeah, like last couple years, but I'm going to take it back a little bit to 2010. Mitchell's taped Fun Spot score was actually removed days after it was entered, but reinstated just before the end of the 9-month period in which the film skips. An equally questionable event took place in 2010, where Mitchell again claimed credit for a world record score via videotape rather than a live performance. As with the Fun Spot incident, the score was accepted by Twin Galaxies without the same validation methods asked of other players. Now, I'm telling you this for background. In late 2017, it was discovered that all of Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong records of over 1 million points were fraudulent. The video footage was made using the MAME emulator, which allows players to use save states. They could tell by the editing, and a lot of people started noticing it. The load up screens. A MAME emulator will load up differently than an arcade chipset. And the reason I bring this up, this would not be an issue. I want to point this out. This would not be an issue because they actually have a category for MAME high scores, but
Sure.
It is in a separate category. He was putting it in the category of an actual arcade cabinet. That's what makes these fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
On April 12th, 2018, NPR reported that Billy Mitchell, holding the title, quote unquote, video game player of the century, has been cast down from the heights of the high score list. Twin Galaxies, which is now under new management, by the way, the organization that tracks video game world records, announced that it is removing his records and banning him from future leaderboards.
Wow.
An investigation lasting more than 2 months found that Mitchell set some of his best-known records on improperly modified software, not the original, unmodified arcade games mandated under the organization's rules. Now, this guy that bought Twin Galaxies has been cleaning house. There was also another guy that was caught. There's been multiple people that were caught cheating from this 80s group that he kicked out and banned. And Guinness actually took away his awards as well. On September 12th, 2019, Billy Mitchell dumps a 156-page evidence package, quote unquote, an attempt to prove his innocence. This is accompanied by a threat of legal action against Guinness World Records and the Twin Galaxies scoreboard if they don't retract defamatory statements against him and reinstate the expunged video game high score world records.
So did his wife have to give back her boobs too, or he had to get back his award?
I was kind of thinking that.
Bought that with his hot sauce money.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're filled with hot sauce.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Gosh,
Wow.
she smells
I mean-
so bad.
That's crazy. That
So
he's
Billy
trying to
Mitchell is
sue.
no longer the world record holder. Actually, the world record
Was he ever?
Yeah, was he ever?
No, I don't ever think so.
As of January 10th, 2011, Hank Chen holds the world record with 1,068,000 points. Steve Wiebe actually has been going back and forth with Hank Chen. And Steve Wiebe has actually been doing it at live events, unlike Billy was doing.
Right.
So
It's a
these
huge difference.
exactly.
It's because he actually can, and Billy Mitchell can't
Right.
do that.
Right.
So Billy Mitchell, also fun story. He actually sued Cartoon Network over a cartoon
Oh yeah, I saw that.
of him. He lost. Just
Of course he did.
yes. All right, so let's end it on a good note.
I'm sorry, real quick though.
Yeah.
When that VHS tape like flips, when they're like, "Hey, here's his tape of his high
Exact-
score," like
Yes.
how does anybody not look at that and go, "I'm sorry, this
Hold
is
on,
not
yeah.
working. This is not working.
Yeah. Yep.
Get the fuck out of here."
So there was actually, I think I can't remember how many years ago, but in Ottumwa they were having one of their big gamer cons or whatever. He had screens going where he announced that he had he had once again claimed the world record, and it was being shot live, and they were or not him playing, but he had screens up showing his run that he said was recorded off of the board while he was playing. And some people took that footage from the TVs that were in the press, quote unquote, press conference, and compared it to MAME and compared it to actual Donkey Kong board video feed, and it was MAME. Like, hands down,
Yeah.
it was MAME. So there was one guy that started this whole thing to take him down, and he was just an amateur fan of all this, and he was doing the side-by-side comparisons, and you can find them on YouTube. Like, there are a ton of videos about it. Where was I going with that? So it was pretty much, and then the only proof that he had was they were at Fun Spot with two guys. The guy that was the referee for Twin Galaxies is the one that was kicked out of Twin Galaxies, and Guinness took away his world records because he was caught cheating. And then the other guy is saying, okay, now we're taking out the Donkey Kong board and we're putting in the Donkey Kong Junior board. And it was very overacted, like this video was. And you can watch it all. It's the same board. He takes out the board and then puts it back in. And you can tell, I guess there's ways to tell that the difference between a Donkey Kong board and a Donkey Kong Junior board. And it's the white lettering and the yellow lettering, and then also a few ROM chips and stuff.
I was going
like
to say
that.
the chips are different too.
Correct. So if you guys want to watch that further, you can just search Billy Mitchell cheating on YouTube, and you will get about 200 videos.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it makes me wonder, like, what about it would be an interesting, like, psychological study about what a person's, ego is like to have to do that.
It's you want to be the
guy.
best.
There's a huge ego in that guy. That's
There are
all he
people-
has.
He would be a good subject for a clinical study.
But there are people
Ego.
today that they spend hundreds of dollars and they write computer code and stuff to be able to cheat in games now. That aim bots and little things like that to make themselves look better,
bots.
so that way people can be like, oh, that person's really good because
They're
they want to
awesome.
be the best, and they're cheating
Yeah.
the whole time.
Mr. Awesome.
The Houston Astros.
We didn't even talk
Houston
about that.
Astros.
Yeah.
That Astros, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Now,
a side effect of
just
modern
real quick.
technology.
There was a point where Billy legitimately had the high score.
That is correct.
And so then he kind of built this little empire and kind of came accustomed to this life. And he's an ass, and I'm not trying to defend it, but I do see this self-preservation where it's like, this is all I have. You know, if I'm not the best at this, it's going to get taken away from me. And so suddenly then you have to, you know, he feels he has to cheat because he's unable to do it otherwise.
Correct.
So
Did he legitimately have it? Like in a live setting?
He did
or
in a
something?
live setting. At one point, he did have it, but then other people were
He was
getting
one of the
higher.
first.
Yeah, other people were getting higher scores, but since he was in charge of the scoreboard and
No one was
entering it
recorded.
in,
Yeah.
it was never recorded. And
Yeah.
there
So-
are quite a few videos about that as well.
it's ridiculous.
All I'm saying is, if you want, you can learn a whole lot about the drama, and that the guy that purchased Twin Galaxies, he helped develop one of the Street Fighters. He helped develop one of the hot games a few years ago, and he bought Twin Galaxies because he saw what was happening, and he's trying to set it right. Like he's getting rid of all of these people that are just, I mean, in cahoots with each other. There's no other word. Like they just
Conspiracy.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy.
And again, you're trying to bring back a name to a company that has been known for this type of thing for a
Correct.
very long time. And you know what's funny about it is we joke about all these kids and everything else and cheating and everything, but yet these guys are grown men that are still doing this, that are in their 50s and 60s, that are still attempting to beat Donkey
That's
Kong,
correct.
which was invented back in the 80s.
And there are people now that are watching their footage and saying, "Oh yeah, that's," you know, they're just people that can look at that and say, "Yeah, that's cheating. That's you're using something to make this happen." Like
Because
the
they
guy,
know it
the
so
other guy,
well.
the referee that was there, had a world record in the Atari game Dragster, and so
Never heard of it.
a whole bunch of people did tests on it, like on the game, and the score that he had put in, that he said that he got, was only you could only do on a MAME, a MAME cabinet essentially, or a what do you call that when you can, a ROM,
An emulator.
an emulator. There you go, because the hardware inside the Atari would not allow that to go. The highest number
Yeah.
was this. This guy said he got this, and it was like 300 or 400.
And there are
More-
scores that are like that, like Pac-Man I've seen where people are cheating because the score flips over and they're like, "Oh, no, this is what I got." And it's like, there's
Yeah.
no way.
Well,
'Cause there
and-
weren't
and-
enough chips.
And Kyle brings up the fact too that he watches speedruns. There have been speedrunners that
Yeah.
have been caught cheating in edits.
Yes.
Like it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's insane. So anyway,
Speed running is fascinating, but it's a
Speedrunning
topic
is
for another
fascinating.
time.
Let's leave it on Mark and Mike, because I think we could all use a little more Mark and Mike.
Holy shit. I was gonna drop the rest of my acid in the hospital. What the fuck, man?
Great story.
I'm glad he told that story, because I was like, has this dude been kicked in the head by a donkey? Because he is just vacant.
He has taken so much acid because you
So-
only need
so
7
lovable
hits
at the same
for
time.
him to be legally insane. He can never serve on a jury of your peers because he's legally insane because of the amount of acid he has taken.
All right, since American Movie, Brochart has been active, appearing on television and in movies. He has made 5 appearances on Late Show with David Letterman, including serving as Letterman's 2000 election correspondent. He made several TV appearances on The Show with No Name, a show in Austin, Texas between 2000 and 2003. In 2004, he played himself in a cameo appearance on the television cartoon series Family Guy, along with friend and American Movie co-star and Mike Keeler's spirit animal, Mike Shank. He and Mike also have their own series on Zero TV, Mark and Mike. And in 2006, Mark and Mike hosted a national television special called Night of the Living Dead, live from Wisconsin on Halloween night. Borchardt has appeared in several movies, including The One, The Tunnel, Abby Singer, and The Godfather of Green Bay. Burchard has also starred in Modus Operandi, played a gravedigger in the partially animated comedy Hamlet ADD, and a leading role in the horror feature The Hangston Demon, and played Mr. England in the directorial debut of fellow Milwaukee filmmaker Joseph K. Richards, the amateur monster movie. In addition, Burchard has also made a cameo in the music video for the Leslie and the Lies song Zombie Killer, featuring Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, on guest vocals. He has contributed to Kevin Lindenmaus' 2001 book, The Independent Film Experience, and has his short stories published in magazines. Burchard is one of a trio of hosts on Cinema Fireside, a weekly film discussion show on WXRW 104.1 in Milwaukee. In 2004, hold on, there's more. In 2004, he announced he would direct Scare Me and sent out casting calls. In 2008, he announced a 2009 release date, which was wait for it, which was originally slated for a 2005 release. Yeah. As of summer 2010, the movie was still in production. In April 2012, Burchard stated that about 65% of the film had been shot and that he was happy with the first 40 pages of the script. However, he maintained parts of the script needed to be revised, and while he had rough cut some of the footage, there was no completion date in place for the project. According to March 2013 update for the Scare Me IMDb page, the release date has been set for April 1st, 2014.
Okay.
It is March 11th, 2020 right now, and I don't think it's been out.
So, did American Movie actually do more for his fame than his movie?
I think it did.
For sure.
I really do think it did. Here we go. In 2018, he directed a documentary called The Dundee Project, which focused on attendees of a UFO festival in Wisconsin. The film premiered at Slam Dance Film Festival in Park City, then played at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Nighthawk Cinema in Brooklyn, and the Chicago Critics Film Festival.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a this is listed as a tagline for Scare Me on IMDb. An alcoholic writer has to write a book to get out of debt when evil forces intervene.
Oh my God.
Does it sound vaguely familiar? Okay, let me read the synopsis of Coven. An alcohol/drug abuser re-examines his life until nearly dies from an overdose. And he's a writer in that too, I believe. I saw a little bit of the beginning of it. I haven't seen all of it yet.
Yeah, he stars in all of his movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they are quote unquote loosely based
on each other.
Now, there are a couple of us on this show that actually worked with a writer and director and actor of a film that actually took 5 years for them to finish. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go into any more of that, but at one point we're actually part of that. So we understand the pain that these people are going through.
All too familiar.
Yep, all too familiar. So, all right, let's move on to our recommendations for this month, and we're actually going to start it off with Tom.
Hey, all right. So my recommendations was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film and Best Documentary this past year, and it's called Honeyland, and it's really hard to describe, but I'll do my best here. So it's about this beekeeper in Macedonia and the filmmakers were actually going to the area to talk about a river that went through the area, and they were going to do this nature documentary, and they noticed that there were these kept beehives nearby, and so they started asking around, and everybody pointed to this woman in this village who pretty much just lived alone in the village with her mom, and their documentary shifted focus towards the telling of this woman's story and how she takes care of these bees. In the course of them doing that, this obnoxious family rolls into town and decides that, hey, that looks like a good way to make money. So they start trying to keep bees as well. They're horrible at it. I mean, there are children with just bee stings all over their faces. It's actually these people are so kind of obnoxious and in your face. It's kind of funny, how badly things go. But of course, in their course of trying to keep bees, they start to have a negative effect on hers. The interesting thing about it is and I'm not going to remember, but the language that the beekeeper woman speaks, and the language that the people kind of all speak, was not the same language that the filmmakers did. So they interviewed her and got all of their footage without knowing anything that was being spoken. And then they had to take it back to the edit room, and they had a translator go through and explain everything and then put the story together that way.
Oh, my God.
They slept in a tent in her backyard for, I think it was 18 months to get this all shot.
Holy cow.
And I'm talking, this is the middle of nowhere. I mean, plumbing, electricity. I mean, they don't have much of anything out here in the middle of nowhere. It was, I don't even know how they charge the batteries, to be honest with you, on their cameras and stuff. It is an amazing story. And if you're one of those people, they're just like, I don't even know how they did that, So it kind of like Free Solo. You're just kind of like, how's that even possible? It's an amazing filmmaking achievement, and it deserves all its accolades. And I know I'm just like, watch this documentary about a Macedonian beekeeper, but I'm telling you, it's really, really fascinating. And I think any other year it probably would have won, but there were some really great documentaries up this year.
What was it called again?
Honeyland.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you,
2019 one.
Yep. 2019.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Gabe.
Well, I'm going to kind of follow Tom's theme, not with the honey, but with the 2019 documentary. I watched a shorter one called Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl, which I believe was the short subject Oscar winner this year. And it's about 40 minutes long, but it's really very interesting and very heartwarming. And it's about girls in Afghanistan learning, period. The fact that they're actually learning to read and write and think for themselves is really quite amazing. But then there's kind of an interesting twist in that they're also taught how to skateboard. It's really kind of it's entertaining and fun and eye-opening all at the same time. And it'll only take about 40 minutes of your life. I would recommend you watch it.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Kyle.
All right. Thank you guys for giving us a couple really well thought out, reasoned recommendations. I want to see both those movies. I'm about to ruin the streak by recommending a movie I think you should only watch if you have one very specific desire, and that is the desire to be overly frustrated with what you hear and yell at your television. Okay. It's a documentary called Abducted in Plain Sight. It was on Netflix. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it is the terrible story of a family who basically falls prey to a predator, and this guy ends up taking their daughter and interacting with them in a lot of nefarious ways. I cannot recommend it as far as like, oh, it's a great documentary, but I cannot think of another movie that made me more frustrated and pissed off at the people involved in the movie. Not the kid, of course, but her parents. and just shaking my head. And literally one time during the movie, I stood up off the couch and like clasped my hands to my forehead with what I was hearing. So if you have a strong desire to be really frustrated, Abducted in Plain Sight might just be the movie you're looking for.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Andrew.
I don't really have a good lead up. Everyone else had these really good like taglines and log lines to go into their movie. I don't really have one. But if you are a filmmaker, or you try to be a filmmaker, and you've always wondered about all the cool ratings like PG-13s and Rs and X and stuff, there's a great documentary that will make you very angry, very, very angry. That's called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. And it is about a guy that goes around and tries to figure out exactly how the MPAA actually rates movies and what the process is behind that and all the troubles that they find and the dirtiness of how ratings are actually come about, and some actual really big filmmakers talk about their experiences with the MPAA and the way they had to change their movie or change their artistic view and stuff to be able to get a rating that would allow them to even play in a theater. And so it's a really fascinating take on how that works. And it, as a filmmaker, it made me very, very angry. But it's a really interesting, eye-opening movie. So when you go to movies and you see the rating, you can realize that the ratings really don't mean anything. But This Film Is Not Yet Rated is a fantastic documentary, and I highly recommend it.
All right.
That's a good choice. That's a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. So I don't know. Well, those of you that are as old as I, or maybe even younger, you guys probably remember the Monopoly games at McDonald's, right? Back in the 90s, you could win a Dodge Viper, you could win, $1 million bucks. So I'd always heard rumors about why that game stopped, and I had never really followed up on it until I saw that there was a 6-part documentary series out on HBO called McMillions.
So good.
And yes, it is so well done. There are great interviews. There are great characters. And of course, they do reenactments of a lot of the stuff. But it is a detailed account of the McDonald's Monopoly game scam during the 90s, as told by the participants in the case, including the prize winners and the FBI agents involved. It took an entire group of FBI agents to track all of this down, because there were no legitimate $1 million, $500,000 winners at all. All of them were rigged.
None of them were legit?
None of them were legitimate. Mm. And it all leads to one guy. And if you watch this, it is incredible. And I loved it. It's like a whodunit, and they go every step of the way. The only criticism I will give was it felt like it kind of dragged a little bit in the middle episodes, but the payoff is actually...
Did they stretch it out to get 6 episodes?
Well, the first couple go so quickly, and part of me was wanting more of the behind the scenes of the FBI in the middle part, but they were focusing more on the people that were involved. Right, like the how everything worked, instead of seeing kind of how the FBI was tracking that. Mm-hmm. So, if you guys have it's over now. It's 6 episodes, an hour apiece. I think you will really enjoy it. Check out McMillions.
Yes, it's very, very good.
I know we're done, but I have a quick question for you guys. You mentioned it with Ken Burns.
Yes.
a little bit. How much advantage do you think there is in? I feel like there's a lot of advantage. You can control the story and actually maybe do a little bit more writing if you're looking back at an event.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hindsight is always 2020, right? Tom said it, when he stated, "Oh, there was a city council meeting. Why didn't I go record that? Oh, there was a crime. Why didn't I record that?" It's hindsight is always 2020. You get more of the story the farther away you get away from it, right? And, unless it deals with the government where, they can label stuff top secret and confidential and things like that.
Right.
But if people talk. And that's where you can find out the stuff. And that's what's interesting about this McMillions is it's about the people that talk, right? Mm-hmm. It all goes down to one person that supposedly calls the FBI that brings this entire thing down. It all comes down to a Post-it note that an FBI agent sees on another FBI agent's screen. And because he was bored, he said, I'm going to look into that.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, how much credit do we give to somebody who makes a documentary about something that's happening right when they're filming it versus somebody who's looking back on an event that already has kind of a clear outcome.
I think there's I think you could put a fine line, but they're both skilled at different. I believe doing a live documentary is probably more difficult. I think you have more of a failure rate.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to have anything to tell.
Exactly. Where if you pick
and how long do you stick with it?
Where if you pick a subject that's already happened, you can go back, you can interview those people, you can do reenactments, you can use news footage, you can do all that. I'm not saying that's easier, but you may have a higher success rate.
Well, you already have a story
Correct.
that you're trying to tell, as opposed to you're hoping that one comes to light as you are doing what you're doing.
Correct. Yep. 100%.
It's a different talent.
Yep. It just made me think of that. I didn't want to extend the episode unnecessarily.
Let's go ahead and poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner, by a reluctant uncle, American Movie!
Wow.
Close one.
Wow. Closer than I kind of imagined it being. Like, even when we were voting, it didn't seem like it was that close.
No, I was actually looking at scores going into overall, and I'm like, oh boy, is this going to... I started weighing my options. I'm like, am I going to use one of my powers to vote, or am I just going to call it a tie, right? And that would have been difficult for me. I agree with all of you on everything that you said. It turned into Senate agree. I mean, these are two fantastic. These are two fantastic stories. They are very well done. They grab your attention and they pull you through and they stick with you. So if you haven't watched these and you've listened to this podcast, what's wrong with you? You should have watched these before you listen to this podcast, because we warn you at the beginning there's going to be spoilers. All right. Tom, where can people find you? Maybe make a documentary about you.
Right now I'm working on a documentary. It's about these two guys, and they're kind of, a little quirky, a little off, but they're trying to get the best Frogger score. The twist, though, is that there's a beehive inside the cabinet, and the whole thing takes place in Macedonia.
With solar panels.
Interesting.
Off of money that they won on the Monopoly game at McDonald's. That's fascinating.
It's not fascinating in any way whatsoever. I think I need to recalculate some life choices here.
I don't know, Tom. I'm on board. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, if you give me $3,000, I'll give you a bath.
Ooh. I'm looking forward to that too.
All right.
I'll go halvesies with you on that, Gabe.
All right. All right, Uncle Gabe. I'll be in the bathroom.
I'll throw in an extra 3 if I can get my own personal bath.
Holy shit, Tom! Your hands are gonna be pruny.
Like a bath with yourself.
Now this is a documentary I'm going to make.
Yeah. Mike's gonna film it all.
I'm going to film.
How
the
did
whole
one
thing.
off-the-cuff remark lead to one man bathing people he knows?
All right, Gabe.
Well, what are we doing?
Where can people find you?
Oh, well, I hope they can't. You know, I'm a little concerned about the coronavirus, and I don't want people touching my face. But you can, I guess, touch my Facebook if you want.
Oh, man.
Oh, is that bad?
I give it a 10, Gabe.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm never there. I'm not on it. I mean, technically I'm on it, but I never do anything there. But you can check out some of our films at onegenomeshort.com.
Thank you, Gabe. Andrew?
Probably the easiest place to go and get all of your feelers out would be go out to ArizonaInkStudios.com. That'll be Arizona Inc. INK Studios.com. And that's where you can actually find all of our social media. You can find all of our short films, all of our mid-length films, and you can find links even to this podcast and see all the details and all the things that the studio is up to right there on ArizonaInkStudios.com.
Thank you, Andrew. Kyle?
So I've been working on a documentary too for the last 30
Oh
years.
boy, here we go.
It's called "Get Your Fucking Shit Together, Kyle." Jesus Christ, it's fucking embarrassing.
That's a really long title.
Is there a subtitle?
Yeah, and other things I thought I'd never have to say. Anyways, yeah, so it's not going well, but I think I'm going to be working on it probably until I die. Yep, that's the end.
That's the only way to get a complete
It's either going to be
story.
really, really short or really, really long.
That's what she said.
Is it just?
Sorry, I've been watching The Office for my first time ever.
Is it just going to be like hours and hours of just your ass farting?
No, but I bet over the course of my life I've spent hours of my life farting for sure, right?
Yeah.
If it adds
All
up
of us
over
have.
time.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll announce a release date after I die.
Well, if you announce
you
a
guys will
release
see if I
date-
got my shit together.
All right.
If you
Spoiler
announce a
alert,
release
I
date
didn't.
before you die, that'd be impressive.
Well, yeah. Who's gonna fucking hold it against me after I'm dead? That'd be some shitty. That'd be shitty.
Yeah, that would be shitty.
Anyways, things aren't going well. Let's move on, guys. Kind of rough.
I can't follow that up.
I'll just drag this whole podcast down.
Yes.
Sorry.
You can
I'm just
find me
messing
on
around.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You can search Southsider Studios on YouTube, see some of our films and videos that we've done in the past. And the boys and I would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. So please, if you enjoy us, leave a 5-star review. That would be awesome. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For April, we go black and white. We get down to the nitty and gritty, if you will, as the big sleep takes on double indemnity. I said it right, guys.
Good job.
Good work.
For Kyle, Tom, Gabe, Andrew, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
I won $50, but I don't want to tell anybody.
I was in the hospital and the drop mother hits acid, but the doctor found it in my coat. If it wasn't for that downer, I'd be gone.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.